Okay. Okay, good afternoon to everyone. We can start this session, technical session 9.3, on safety risk and operation of the ground infrastructure. I'm Carmine Todaro. I'm assistant professor at Polytechnic of Turin, and I have the pleasure also to introduce my colleague in this role, Konstantinos Sakas, and we will have this afternoon session with 4 different presentations. I just want to remind to stay in 15 minutes, then we will have 5 minutes of questions, and we can start with the first contribute. The title is Monitoring of Compressed Air Workers During Hyperbaric Intervention in TBM. And I would to invite on the floor Dr. Nina Subotina. Nina Subotina is graduated with honor in the First Moscow State University in URSS. She's expert in hyperbaric medicine, and from 1998 to 2018, she was medical director and president of the Center for Hyperbaric Medicine of Buenos Aires. She was medical advisory contractor by company Pilots Trevi and the medical advisory contractor for compressed air work in consortium collector Manelche of Gela. So I think that we will have a very interesting presentation for one of the main experts in hyperbaric topic. So Nina, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. For me, it's an honor to present this work here. So, monitoring of compressed air workers during hyperbaric interventions in TBM. Okay, the progress made in tunnel construction with tunnel boring machines in urban areas and difficult grounds points to the compressed air worker as a main figure. They are the ones that should carry out the maintenance of the cutting wheel, working in the hyperbaric environment and dealing with all the risks associated to such activity. They have not only to perform their duty perfectly, but also they have to care of their personal health to cope with growing working pressures and more complex tools and tasks. Compressed air workers should be reliable and capable individuals in all aspects. While health problems in high-pressure environments are usually considered in limits of presence or absence of dysbaric syndromes, other important details of the worker's health, such as their everyday mood, strengths, and physiological functions, are usually not taken into consideration. Okay. So, in the Riachuelo System Project, Gela has implemented a package of good practices for dry hyperbaric environment that included the medical and safety procedures, the detailed workers' health studies, vital signs, cardiovascular parameters, and psychology, the records of bubbles in the blood after surfacing in high-pressure interventions. Why it is important? It is important because while the quantity of circulating bubbles is low, also the risk of decompression sickness is also low. In Argentina, for the first time, were applied the German and French hyperbaric protocols that were not applied before. Here are the protocols mentioned. So, to justify the use of these protocols and their conveniency to applying in the local environments, they were used the Doppler bubble registry. So electrocardiograms and Doppler scanning of the precordial and subclavial zone were analyzed using the Kissmann-Mazurel score. It's here. On the, you see? No. Pardon. Here, which range from 0, no bubbles observed, to 4 bubbles fill the entire space of the heart chambers. And this video, I will look how to put it on. It is the heart, and there are seen some bubbles. That bubbles are grade 2, only grade 2. But the quantity of bubbles is calculated as acceptable when no more than 20% of the bubbles of the grade 3. So, medical support of the hyperbaric intervention implemented by Gella included, first, the review, pre-intervention and also after surfacing, all these parameters that are listed here. And besides, the physician also observed the movement, the behavior of the compressed air workers, and it was necessary to diagnose or to rule out the probability of some hyperbaric interventions. Here are the results. Average values of vital signs before and after the intervention, and that a number of observations. You see that there are many observations were made. We see that the blood pressure, systolic and diastolic, is slightly lowered after the intervention. And the heart rate slightly increased. But the difference, look at the difference. It is statistically significant only because of great number of observations. But you see, the difference between 120 and 160 millimeters of mercury is 4 millimeters of mercury. It is less than 5 millimeters that are considered within the era of measurement. So it's statistically significant, but practically, physically, it is not important. And also with the heart rate here, 74, increased to 78, also that has not important physiological significance. So our first conclusion, that the safety of the working environment and the organization of the working schedules was proven. All the physiologic and psychologic parameters of the compressed air workers were perfect. Our experience was analyzed, and we wrote it, and it is presented in these books, one in Spanish and other in English option, and both are available at Amazon. The second issue was the trend, the tendency in the changing of the parameters. You see here the segmentation by pressure. Here is the pressure till 1 bar, from 1.1 to 2.3 bar, 2.4, 2.5, and the most highest 2.6, 3.6. You see that the tendency is to lower the absolute value of the changes. So, how to interpret? The interpretation is challenging. We should compare with other studies about the cardiovascular system response to the high pressure. But we have not found any data of the similar situation. But there are many publications of other working situations, for example, in aviation and other type of working, when the working is a very stressful and a very demanding. So we analyzed two parameters, the duration of the intervention and the pressure. Here you see the total time of intervention, and here are 2 hours, 4 hours, 6 hours, 9 hours. We see that the total duration of intervention didn't show us any differences. The same with the difference of the bottom time. It was the bottom time also no difference as we saw in the main slide. But decompression time, yes, showed that with the less time of decompression, it was more changes, and with the at the most time of decompression, the changes were less. And here I put the segmentation of pressure. We see it's the same as the duration of the compression time. Effectively, they are closely linked. So, how to explain it? How does the cardiovascular system respond to high pressure, and which criteria should we apply? The stroke volume and cardiac output parameters are used to characterize working condition in different demanding and stressful situation. So, it's important that when the greater is the energy consumption during work, the more pronounced is the alteration of the cardiovascular system. So we had to compare the stroke volume and cardiac output of our workers in the different segments of pressure. I will remember you that the stroke volume is the volume of blood pumped out of the left ventricle of the heart during each systolic contraction, and cardiac output is the total blood volume pumped from the left ventricle per minute. So, according to bibliography, the long-lasting working day and psychophysiological stress produce a reduction of cardiac output, affecting both parameters, heart rate and stroke volume. But in our group of workers, only 1 from 16 showed a similar reduction. And here are the data of the stroke volume and cardiac output before and after intervention of all the group, of all the 16 persons. And we see that the cardiac output has not changed significantly from the initial values. What about nitrogen narcosis? Probably it was due to euphoria caused by nitrogen narcosis. The mood registry was done after the decompression, but the physician observed during all the time of all the intervention the behavior of the workers, and there were not observed any nitrogen narcosis effect in the behavior of the workers, and there were no incidents, labor incidents at high pressure. What is important that our workers have received a special training on nitrogen narcosis. This is the photo. If somebody is interested, I can explain. So, Minor changes of vital signs at high pressure could be due to relative hyperoxia. We know the classical work of Eichenhoff, who in 1984 presented that the bradycardia is linked to relative hyperoxia and increased pressure. There are also
Sorry,
are there
Dr.
also-
Nina, 2 minutes.
Okay,
We have.
okay, I will finish.
Thanks.
Okay, so our workers worked at 2.6, 3.6 bar, so it was equivalent to 3.6, 4.6 ATA. So breathing air, they had almost 1 atmosphere of oxygen. So detailed studies showed that the hyperbaric intervention in TBM at pressures up to 3.7 bar are well tolerated and don't present any special risk to the health of the compressed air workers according to the parameter studied. All the measures that were invented by the Gella in the Riachuelo project gave its result. It was the systematic process of personnel selection, specific training, strict application of compression-decompression protocols, and everyday medical support. So the Gella Safety and Health Department relied on the analysis of hierarchy of controls pyramid to carry out these procedures, and the medical studies presented here helped to include the necessary control measures to eliminate or mitigate the risk. So this approach ensured that the project was carried out successfully, and the safety and health of the workers were protected. Thank you for your attention.
Thanks, Dr. Subodona. Are there questions from the floor? I know that maybe the topic, we are engineers, so we are not so... I have, anyway, a question. It's just a curiosity, so you can forgive me if I will use words not so perfect according to a medical point of view. But when you listed the check, you,
Yes.
told also that the mood and the behavior is considered for the pretest, yes?
Yes.
But how
Not pre-test, not.
Not pre-
The gait and the movement also. If somebody came and has some problems, also it's probably the physician is observing the before the intervention.
Okay.
He will have his blood pressure, heart rate, drug test. So if his behavior is rare,
I just was...
But after, it's very important after, because sometimes the bends make that the person has, for example, his arm with the pain in the arm, and so they have a special position. Why it is called bends, from the verb to bend, to incarvarse. So it is one of the tests that the physician who is trained in hyperbaric medicine could diagnose, or probably think it could be, because during the 24 hours after the intervention, our physicians were on call, because any symptomatology could arise after the intervention. Generally, 60% in the first hour, 90% in 2 hours, but till 24 hours, and also as extremely rare 48 hours. So it could appear something.
Okay, thanks a lot. Okay, if we have no other questions, maybe Nicola. Thanks.